Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Kaiju deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this one for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Izzy. And this deck is an extremely interesting deck that can practically tribute over any monster in the entire game. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like your name, description in a single video, getting get signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. And definitely give Izzy some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Gameciel, our main boss monster. This card is amazing in the deck as a 3-of because this card is actually a walking negate. Because we do play Kyoto Waterfront, we can actually generate Kaiju counters, which is amazing. This card has an amazing ability that when your opponent activates a card or effect except a copy of Gameciel, quick effect, you're going to move 2 Kaiju counters from anywhere on the field to negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card, which is such a powerful effect to be able to use to basically just use this card as a walking negate. Plus, sometimes in this deck you do need to hand your opponent the turtle to basically give them a small Kaiju so we can swing in for game. We then play 2 copies of Dolgaran. Dolgaran is really cool in this deck as a 2 because this card has a crazy powerful effect that once per turn, you can actually remove 3 Kaiju counters from anywhere on the field and destroy all monsters that your opponent controls, but this card cannot attack the turn you activated this effect. We then play 2 copies of Gandarla. Gandarla is really cool as a 2-of in the build. All of these monsters are level 8, which is why I'm playing them all in this deck. But this card also has the really cool ability that once per turn, quick effect, you can remove 3 Kaiju counters from anywhere on the field, and the attack and events of all their monsters on the field become halved, which is a great ability to be able to use. We then play a single copy of the Thunder King. Thunder King Kaiju is really cool in the deck, just in case we need a really large Kaiju on our side of the field. So this card comes out at 3,300, and this card also has a really cool ability that you can move 3 Kaiju counters from anywhere on the field, and your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated for the rest of the turn. Also, this card can make up to 3 attacks on monsters during each battle phase this turn, making it so you can easily OTK your opponent with this card. I really like this card in the deck, but I feel like 1 is really all you need in this build because it's so easy to summon out to your side of the field, but this is actually the Kaiju you usually want to get yourself or your copy of your Gameciel to be able to use as a negate. We then play 3 copies of Fairy Tail Luna. Fairy Tail Luna is insane in this build as a 3-of because this card helps out so much in the deck to be able to normal summon out to your side of the field, because this card is a crazy powerful effect that when this card is normal summon, you can add another copy of this card from your deck to your hand, and also once per turn, quick effect, you can actually target a face-up monster that your opponent controls, and your opponent can send a card from their with the same monster name from their deck or extract to the graveyard to negate this effect. Otherwise, you return that card back to the hand, and this card back to the hand, meaning you can use this card with any of your Kaijus to hand your opponent a Kaiju, normal summon this card out to your side of the field, bounce this and the Kaiju back to hand, and then Kaiju your opponent all over again, which is insane that you can do that. And I love that about this card, that basically turns your Kaijus from 1 tribute into 2 tributes, and it's such a powerful normal summon in this build. We then play 3 copies of Gizmek Orochi. Gizmek Orochi is great in the deck as a 3-of because this card just is super easy to summon out to your side of the field as a level 8 monster, which is why I play so many level 8 Kaijus in this deck, because it's super easy to make rank 8s in this build to OTK, but this card is easy to summon out to your side of the field because if it's in your hand or your grave, quick effect, you can banish 8 cards from the top of your deck face down to special summon this card to your side of the field. You can also banish 3 cards from your extract face down, and then target 1 face-up monster on the field and destroy it, which is an amazing effect. We then play 3 copies of Danger Bigfoot. Danger Bigfoot is great as a 3-of in the deck. This card is a level 8 extender for the deck that's super easy to put on your side of the field. That you reveal this card in your hand, your opponent randomly chooses 1 card from your entire hand and discard the chosen card. If this card was not Danger Bigfoot, you special summon this card and draw a card, but if this card is discarded, you get to target a face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. We then play a single copy of Thunderbird. Thunderbird is great as a 1-of in the build and has the exact same effect as your copy of Bigfoot, but if this card is discarded, you target a set card that your opponent controls and destroy it, which is again a pretty cool effect to be able to use. We then play 3 copies of Alpha, the Master of Beasts. Alpha is really cool as a 3-of in the deck. This card is super easy to summon out to your side of the field, and it's a really cool card overall that has the effect that it cannot be normal summoner set. It must be special summoned from your hand, while the total attack of all monsters that your opponent controls is more than that of all the monsters that you control, and then you can summon this card out to your side of the field. You can also target any number of beasts, beast warrior, and or wing beast monsters you control, and return them back to the hand, and then return face-up monsters your opponent controls back to the hand, equal the number of cards you return back to the hand, which is an awesome ability to be able to bounce multiple monsters off your opponent's side of the field, including Kaijus, so we can use them all over again. I love that about this card, and it's so cool that you can balance multiple cards off the field with this card's effect, but usually you're just balancing one because you're going to balance this card and another card off the field. We then also play 3 copies of Cashier of Fenrir. Fenrir is just so good. You got to play it in the deck because it's so easy to summon out to your side of the field. Because it's a board breaker, it can search another copy of itself. It can out any of the Kaijus that you give your opponent. And it's very good in this deck because if you don't control a monster, you special summon it to your side of the field. And then also can search another copy of itself and it spot removes something, which is just absolutely crazy. This card is definitely a 3-of in the deck. And just a really cool card overall to be able to summon to basically out any of the cards you have hand to your opponent. And it's really, really good. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is definitely a 1-of in the deck, so we actually want to search out our copy of Kyoto Waterfront as quickly as possible so we can use Kaiju Monsters effects. I know, weird. We then play a single copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Harpy's Feather Duster is great in this deck as 1-of just to deal with your opponent's back row, because we can easily deal with your opponent's monsters, but this card just helps us deal with our opponent's back row by just basically destroying them all. We then play a single copy of Instant Fusion and a single copy of Ready Fusion, because I actually have a really spicy tech card in the extract that you can summon out to your side of the field to go in for a synchro play of Psychic in Punisher, which is absolutely crazy. But these cards are really good in the deck to basically extend your plays. We then play a single copy of Triple Tactics Talent. Triple Tactics Talent is really good as a 1-of in the deck to be able to summon out or basically use this card to take an opponent's monster or draw 2 cards, or be able to basically choose a card from your opponent's hand and shuffle it into the deck, which is amazing to basically just use this card to use any of those 3 broken abilities. We then play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. Thrust is amazing in this deck because you can basically search out cards like Harpy's Feather Duster, Instant or Ready Fusion, Terraforming, Triple Tactics Talent, any of those cards you can instantly grab with your copy of Thrust, which is amazing. So this card is definitely a 2-of in the build. We then play 2 copies of Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. I feel like 2 is really all you need because we do play Thrust in the deck, so this card is really good overall to basically just board wipe the field and then summon out 2 Kaijus, 1 to your opponent's field and 1 to your field, plus you can manage this card in the graveyard to add a Kaiju from your deck to your hand, which is so cool to instantly add a Kaiju monster from your deck to your hand off this card's effect. This card is basically Dark Hole and then puts 2 Kaijus on the field. We then play 2 copies of Release Brainwashing. I really like this card for this deck, and it's really amazing. I did actually consider playing 3 copies of this card, but I feel like 2 in playtesting was really all you needed because it's so powerful, and once you resolve it once, you're probably going to win. This card has the ability, if a monster is tributed from the hand or field, you can actually target a face-up monster your opponent controls and apply these effects based on which player owns that face-up monster. If you own it, you take control of it, but return it back to the hand during the end phase. Probably not going to make it to the end phase because you're going to OTK your opponent. But if it's your opponent's monster originally, you negate its effects until the end of the turn, basically making this card a negate, which is amazing. Or we just take back our Kaiju, which is really cool. This card is definitely a 2-of in the build, and it's really powerful in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Kyoto Waterfront. Kyoto Waterfront is definitely a 3-of in the deck, and an amazing card to be able to activate, is this card actually generates Kaiju counters so we can use our Kaiju monsters effects. And each time a card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you place a Kaiju counter on this card for each card sent to the grave, maximum 5. And once per turn, when 3 Kaiju counters are on this card, you can add a Kaiju monster from your deck to your hand. And if this card would be destroyed, you can remove a Kaiju counter from this card instead. This card is amazing because it searches out your Kaijus and it enables you to be able to activate your Kaiju monster's abilities, which is insane because they actually have some really cool effects. We then play 3 copies of Trade-In. Trade-In's great in the decks. We play so many different level 8s, and this card is really good to basically help us draw 2 cards. So, that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra, guys, we're going to start with a single copy of number 1. This card is really good as a 1-of in the deck because this card is a great ability that once per turn during your standby phase, you can actually attach 1 card from your opponent's graveyard to this card as a material. And if this card is XZ summon, you can actually look at your opponent's extract and send a card from it to the graveyard. And you can also detach a material from this card and then destroy a card that your opponent controls. And it also has the ability that then, if you destroyed a face-up monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half that monster's attack it had on the field, which is such a powerful effect to be able to do basically burn damage to your opponent and get cards out of your opponent's extract to know exactly what you're dealing with so you know what you need to kaiju over. And my single copy of Dingirsu. Dingirsu is really good as a 1-of because when it's XZ summon, you do get to send a card to the graveyard. Plus, this card makes Zeus super easy. And my single copy of Dragonbolon. Dragonbolon is great in the deck as a 1-of because you can either summon out your copy of number 38 as a spell negate or number 100 to your side of the field, usually number 100, so we can OTK your opponent because this card gains 1,000 attack times the number of ranks on the field. So usually this card is coming out with that 9,000 attack points so you can swing in for game. We then play a single copy of Zeus. Zeus is really good in the deck to be able to make over your copy of your Dingirsu. Basically just help you board wipe the field just in case you need to. We then play a single copy of Typhon. Typhon is really good in the deck as a 1-of just in case you're going second in this deck. You can basically just use this card as a great card that you can put on your side of the field. Kaiju your opponent first, and then once you do, make this card and bounce the Kaiju right back to your hand so you can use it again later on the follow-up because after you summon this card, you can't summon anymore for the turn. We then play a single copy of Psychic In Punisher. Psychic In Punisher is so good in this deck and so easy to summon in this build, as all you have to do is use a copy of Instant Fusion to be able to summon out your copy of Allvain to make this card, which is so cool to instantly get this card out on your side of the field, as it comes out absolutely massive and can spot remove cards off the field. We made a single copy of Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel is great in the deck as a 1-of to be able to make, because you can make this card very easily in this deck with your copy of Allvain, because we have multiple different attributes of monsters. So this card is really good to be able to make, and it's an amazing card to be able to summon because when it is summoned, it does spot remove cards off the field. My single copy of Arms of the Gen X Return 0. This card is a negate, which is insane, and it's a really cool card to be able to make in this deck because our copy of Allvain is actually a dark monster, so this card is really good to be able to make because when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can manage a monster from your graveyard with the same attribute and then negate the activation if you do destroy that monster, which is a great ability to be able to use because we play so many different attributes in this deck from our Kaiju monsters and all the different other tech cards in the deck. Basically every single attribute in the entire deck makes it, basically making it super easy to use this card to negate something. We then play a single copy of the Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign. This card is really good in the deck and comes out absolutely massive and actually works really well with your copy of Gizmek Orochi because Gizmek Orochi will be banishing the cards. So this card is actually going to get massive and it's going to reduce your opponent's monster's attack points down, and it helps you spot remove cards off the field because if this card is, or if a card is banished, you can actually banish a card from both your opponent's field and graveyard, which is an awesome effect. Then my single copy of Allvain. Allvain is really good to be able to make in this build because this card is a tuner monster, so you can use any of your level 8s to make any of your level 10s or be able to step into a copy of the Psychic In Punisher using your copy of the Thunder King Kaiju plus this card. We then buy a single copy of Millennium Eyes Restrict. Millennium Eyes is just great to summon off your copy of Instant Fusion because we do have the room in the extract and this card is basically a monster negate, so it's a great card to be able to make with your copy of Instant Fusion. We then buy a single copy of the Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. This is one of the only link monsters you're ever going to need in this deck, as this card is so cool to summon out because this deck can swarm like crazy. You make this card and it has the ability, if it destroys a monster in a battle, it either gains 1500 attack to make a second attack during the following battle phase, or you banish card non-targeting off the field. And if you use a level 7 or higher monster this as a material to make this card, your opponent cannot target it or destroy it with card effects. We then finally play a single copy of SP. SP is great in this deck as a 1-of because it's so easy to summon and it's basically a double interruption, which is so cool to be able to do. So That's it for the deck, guys. I would enjoy it. This deck is so fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a Kaiju deck before, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's extremely fun to be able to play, and it's insane how easy it is to be able to tribute over your opponent's monsters with this deck, and even finally use Gamma Seal's effect. So, that's going to do this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.